Dude, how have you been, man? It's been like a minute since we were able to connect.
Man, I've been doing all right. Yeah, just hanging out, and happy to hang out with you, man. Do some of this podcast stuff with you. So,
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much for being down to do this. I talked to Ben yesterday. That was like the first one.
Oh, that had to been legit.
Yeah, it was cool, dude. Yeah, he was telling me about his new plugin and his his company Data Mind Audio, and we were talking about his experiences teaching and stuff like that. Yeah, it was cool.
Oh yeah, the proper person to have a conversation with for sure.
Yeah, completely, dude.
Like
but I was like, man, I gotta talk to Dylan.
Well,
I gotta talk to Dylan. So, dude, what have you been working on recently?
I actually could show you. Actually, I don't even know. Can you share? Yeah, you can. You can totally share.
There's like a share screen. There's like a share screen thing here, and I had that same thought. I was like, oh, I wonder if you can like share Ableton on here, which would be kind of cool.
Well, that gives me two thoughts. First of all, dude, that would be sick if you did a podcast with just like Ableton, like techniques and stuff, just talking about like whatever you're getting into. That would be legit. Second of all, it's the end of the year, so I always like to like prep. I love to prep for the next year.
Yeah.
Like wintertime is like my favorite writing area in terms of seasons. Like summertime I can write, but it like always feels like bangers or something. Whereas like in spring, I'm like refining a couple tracks that I wrote in winter. And fall is always like a weird place. Like I don't know if I'll be writing or mixing and mastering or like taking on a new adventure or something. But yeah, it is kind of strange where like the majority of like my attention and like where it will go is season dependent. So right now I'm working on a lot of like prep work.
That's awesome. And what does your prep work entail? Like cleaning up your library, or like how do you prep for the winter?
Well, I mean, I do enjoy the good old hibernation.
Yeah, that's like,
that work? Oh, look at that! I got my camera control.
Yeah,
hey, yo.
Look at that.
Okay, that'll work for now. Hopefully the white balance isn't fucking crazy. I'll play with this for a second. But I think honestly, like the best thing that I can do during winter is a little bit of everything. So I've been working like too soon. I've been working really, really hard on trying to get Ableton to be like a master library. If you think about like Tractor or Record Box or anything like that, like you have all your tools, right? Like you have your library, and if you have a second party tool like Mix and Key or something of that nature, right? Like you have all your information, everything's, tagged. You have cue points, all that fun stuff, right? So in Ableton, for me, it's the same way. It's like, I would love to have a library where all my samples are tagged. Like I stopped using Splice and Loop Cloud almost a year ago now. Not that I don't use those samples or anything of that nature. It's that I stopped using the service. Like I'm not subscribed anymore. I have more than enough. And I think like, well, you spoke with Ben, like there is this level, right? Much like the whole spirituality journey, right? Like people become like spiritual, and you can see like some stages, here's some really bad examples, but like someone who's never like been a Christian before become Christian, and they read the Old Testament, they're like, oh, you all are sinners. You know what I mean? And then they get like a little further and they're like, oh, wait, maybe I shouldn't have been so outspoken. And then they get to New Testament stuff and they're like, oh, I'm the elephant in the room. Oh, okay. Yeah. So same kind of concept when like you're making music, right? Like you start using samples and then you become indoctrinated into like what a producer is, which is like you have to make everything from scratch, and that kind of like kills your vibe and stuff because you're not everyone, but some people just don't have the programming or understand signal flow or synthesis, that kind of stuff, right? So then like you go down this journey of like flogging yourself, your pain, lots of pain. And then you realize like your favorite people or people that are like literally getting paid more than rent, you know, more than a month's worth of rent at a single show for a single hour. And they're using Splice, like melodic loops or anything. Just like, oh yeah, it's just Lego parts, these together, right? And then there's that faction where people are like, oh, that's lame. And the other faction is like, oh, no, like make music. That's what it's about. So same thing is like Ben will say, look, it's not about creating what's in your head. You need that knowledge. You need that wisdom, but it's discovering the sounds that you couldn't conceive of yet. Like you had to learn to discover that which is inside of yourself.
Yeah,
like that
totally.
Dude is such a philosopher. I don't care what anyone says. So for me, I want to organize a majority of my material that I already have and see what can I discover from it, right? Like the combobulator is a great way to think about how you can take a sound you've probably used 100 times and retexture it or come up with weird modular, like gritty, glitchy samples that are almost like granulated. So my whole point right now is to organize my Ableton to where it is like a master library. Like it's not just a DAW where I grab some sounds and sequence them. It's like I want all my stuff just right there. And I've noticed like some of my favorite artists have a specific filing structure. And oh my God, dude, have I been like nerding out on file structure, just on everything now. Like everything has to have file structure. And that organization has been really good, I think, for my mental health. So that's part one. And then part two is applying all of the organization to see like, what do I even use? What do I even need right now? Like at the forefront, if the blinders were on, like how does this organization align with like what I'm trying to do creatively or like goal wise? So a lot of it is prep.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I definitely think it's like, you know, it's super important to be organized, and whatever that means for the individual, you know, however that makes the most sense, but the less time spent like digging for stuff when you want to be in a flow state, I have found for myself like the better. Or if I just know, like I've been using the favorites in Ableton to like basically like tag folders of like my favorite samples and stuff. And then I'll just go and search like in that favorite like snare, you know, or like whatever. But yeah, I think it's like, I think that with anything, the organization is like a key sort of an element, because then you're just like wasting time, like digging through stuff. And like, it's fun to dig through stuff if that's like what the intent of like what it is that you're trying to do. But yeah, like if I'm in a flow state, the last thing I want to do is be just like digging through stuff or like waiting for the samples to load in like the Ableton browser, you know?
Yeah.
Just
or
all that stuff.
locating the file. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like I keep everything in Dropbox. And so sometimes like I'll have samples that are like, they show up in the Ableton like browser, but then I click on it to preview it, and then it has to like download because Dropbox is like optimizing, you know, my storage, even though I'm like, yo, this folder don't.
Yeah.
But that's awesome, dude. Yeah, that's like that's really cool. And do you do the same thing with your own like presets and stuff like that too, or your own racks? Like, what's your process with all that?
I mean, dude, I will talk about this like to the point where I'm vomiting out of the mouth, but let me just give you kind of like an overview of like how I envision like this process, and maybe that'll give us some, you know, insights that we can share tips and tricks, you know. But yeah, like everything is organized, like down to my MIDI, my grooves, my presets. And I specifically Okay, let's just start from the beginning, right? Like, I love just searching through folders and finding a bunch of sounds through a cacophony of things and just dragging the ones I like into a fresh new project. I call it my free writing template. And it's like how my Ableton starts up. And I love doing that because if I haven't been listening to music, because I'll take like a hiatus from like listening to anything, maybe I'll listen to an audiobook, but no music in the audiobook, like just totally dry, just to kind of see what life is like without music every now and again, like a refresh. And then I'll just go through like all my old like sound factories, as Ill Gates had coined, or like sample packs, and just find stuff that's like rocking me. Like, oh, why is this pulling me, you know? And so I'll find those things and kind of build out a palette, and then, you know, pick the stuff that is working and kind of study it. So once I do that, I kind of start getting into listening to songs that are like I'm vibing to. Maybe it's a technical thing, it's a sequence thing, it's a melodic thing. And I'll just suffocate my thoughts with music to where there's no thought now. It's just purely observing the sound that's like passing through my ears. And then when I started doing this process, like it came to me, I was like, I just need to set up like a workflow, like how I can make the year work in my favor. And much like my zodiacal tapestry behind me, every season has like a very specific interpretation of what you're supposed to be doing, like in the rhythms of nature and how you can resemble that cycle in your life and be healthy. So same thing with like music, right? I like to build out a structure where if I am prepping for the first quarter of the year, which is a long time to prep, then the rest of the 3 months need to be the rest of the 3 quarters need to be directive. Like I need to know exactly what I'm doing, when I'm doing, how I'm doing it. So I used to do these sprints for like 30 days. So it'd be like, 10 days of prep work, anywhere from like 5 to 10 days of applying that prep work. And then the last few days calibrating the things that I didn't like and the things I do like. But that was too short. And I got some good results out of it. It's like almost like fall, February album writing month, where like you're really just hitting the ground running from day one and you don't slow down. But like if you have to like go digging for stuff and you don't know what you're trying to write, you don't know what the post-processing chains that you want to do, or you don't even know like the types of reverbs that your music needs or your creative insight needs. The same thing with like filters or like color coding photos, like all of that is just like your signature. So I've literally just gone through the last like 15 years because I literally will be at 16 years of producing in 2025 March.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah. So, whether I'm good or not is the scary part. But, I went through all 15 years of my archives, the stuff that I still have retained. A computer of mine failed once upon a time, lost like everything. But I went through all my stuff and I realized there was like racks and sounds and samples that I like really gravitate to that I could reuse 1,000 times. Nobody would ever notice until like they start hearing like those textures. So presets, one shots, drum sequences, MIDI, all of that, man. Like it's just organized now. And I'm starting to see my ShadowStar, let's say it's like a mood board in a way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Like a visionary board that has all the things that make up me as a musician at this time. And it has significantly helped me to do these 30-day like training periods. So 30 days of prep work, getting Ableton in order, getting the palette in order, which I'm going to use this palette for 90 days. It's like 30 days is exploring the palette. The next 30 days so first 30 days, explore the palette, right? Second is refining it in some way, meaning like, okay, I've explored it, now I'm applying it. And then the last 90 days is all calibration, like get rid of the stuff that doesn't serve me anymore. And if I need to add anything, like say like, for instance, I like to have 5 master kicks. It's like, this is the bane of my existence. I do not need to recreate a kick every time to get started. Like at the point where the song is like, taking off, then I'm like, okay, let's make something unique. Especially if you're DJing your own music back to back to back, like you don't want that weird analog phase to happen whenever it's the exact same signal. It does happen. I've heard it with my kicks before. I'm like, oh, I should probably do that. I mean, it sounds kind of cool when you're mixing because you get that flanger effect. from an analog mixer when like two of the same signals cross. But for the most part, like I just want to have anchor stuff ready to go. And if I, X 3 of those kicks because they no longer serve the purpose or the tone, timbre of what I'm looking for, then I'll sit down and I will just work on kicks for a minute, So the last like 30 days of basically 120, because 30 to figure it all out, 30 to do the prepping and planning, and then 30 to apply it, then 30 to recalibrate it. That's where like the best of my music comes out. I actually just got done doing 120 days of training this way, and it was very fruitful.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. I always love hearing different people's approaches to, and it's like the fun sort of like nerdy aspect of what we do, but it's like hearing people's approaches to stuff like this, to organizational stuff, to like your palette. I find myself gravitating towards like the same types of drums too, in a certain like flow state. And for me, it was the way like the EP that I released earlier in the year. There was like a
damn good EP.
Dude, thank you, man. I really appreciate that, dude. I'm
Kevin
proud of
and I
it.
jammed that at work, dude. Like that was in our catalog to listen to, man. Hell yeah.
But like that entire EP, I used the same technique. It was this like generative technique where I basically loaded up. I made a 128 of a bunch of one shots. They were all tuned to C, and then I put expression control, like randomization on the sample selector. And so I would like have my bass line or whatever, and then that was like how I created all my mid bass on the EP. And then I would like post process it, with saturation, distortion, and whatnot. But so I feel like that's sort of the glue that really tied that EP together, is like all those songs. That's like how I made my basses. And then I've been finding a lot of the stuff I've been writing recently, I haven't been doing that, but it has like a different sort of a quality because of like what I'm into right now. And then I'll probably do what I did earlier in the year at some point next year of just like collecting a bunch of the songs that I've made that I feel like could maybe go together, that feel like they might fit together for like, whatever the next EP or something like that is. But it is interesting how the processes or the things that we do or the habits that we form, and maybe it's like we're not consciously aware of it at the time, but how that dictates like what your sound is. And it's cool that you are aware of it, and it's like and being very intentional of like, yeah, this is my palette. This is my palette for the season.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
I mean, at some point, like you get bored of the palette, and I've taught this like when I was more active in the dojo. I taught this like within the first 6 months. It was like, okay, like let's really hone in like what you're trying to do with students, and they would always like buckle and begin to hate me because like some aspect of it is like, oh my God, I don't want to write this like all the time. Like no, I'm married. Oh God, I'm married. And I find that limitations actually like reveal things to you. They reveal like how you'll function, like how creative can you be if you only had to use a 909, right? Like Justin J does this once a year where he does the 909 challenge, and I started pushing that as well so that people could understand like you could write a whole entire song with nothing but the inspiration of Jeff Mills, right? And so in some way, like the palette, like it forces you to know your sounds and your sequences so well and identify with them in a way if you're sensitive enough with this awareness. But the weirdest thing for me is that I see people going, oh, all my music starts to sound the same. Oh God, oh God. And I mean, to some degree, I'm sure that's horrible, right? Like when you just feel like you're writing the same song every day. But think about like listeners who've never heard your music before, right? And you hear a track from you, and the next thing, I need more of this. I need this sound. Like, I need this sound. How can I find more of it? And then it's like a one-off. And the listener listens to the rest of your catalog and they're like, what? I don't even know how I can find music that is like this, the quality, the quantitative force that is behind it. And so if I stick with a palette for a period of time, I will write as many weaves as I can of the same, thread of a tapestry and be like, oh man, now I have X amount of songs that are in the same vein. Sometimes they work together, sometimes they don't, because you might do something completely drastic, genre swapping or hybrid methods, or maybe like one is sample based, meaning like it's heavily resampled and lots of sampling, whereas the next is all analog and like hardware, where it's like as it was fed in is how you're going to get it out kind of thing. I find that those are some really magical moments though. I know there are people that write way faster than I do, finish songs way faster than I do, and maybe even have a polish that I envy in a way of like, I need to get my engineering skills to that point. But just with like 120 days of doing this, I was able to knock out 61 songs. I already have some of them slated for release. I've got 13 that are complete that I'm just looking at like, man, now what I want. Like, what is the purpose of these songs? Where do they need to go? How are they supposed to help my career? And by pushing myself so intimately with this palette, I understand like when it should be played, what stages, the hour, like what DJs, what labels might be interested in. Of course, this is in a way a subjective objectivity because it's like a bias, but I find that the artists that stick with a particular form, like a martial art, right? Bruce Lee said, I don't fear the man who trained 1,000 kicks one time. I fear the man who trained one kick 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And everyone that I've met, like in the industry or industries that have been very successful, they're like, look, I'm not looking for the person that can do it all. I'm looking for the person that can do one thing really well. Unfortunately for me, I like to complete the phrase or the old saying, which is like a jack of all trades, a master of none, right? Well, everyone stops there, at least from my generation, and they forgot the other part. It was like a jack of all trades better than a master of one, meaning like at least you're going to have a bunch of paths that you can experience life on instead of just one.
Yeah,
so
completely.
I'm of the mind. So I don't mean to rant,
No,
but
dude, you can rant away. This is the town square. This is where
Well, I'm of the mind that what if you were to do many things, but you train it under the impression or the intent that you're going to train one kick 1,000 times, and then you're going to go to kick 2, and you're going to train that 1,000 times or 10,000 times, and that's where I started developing my sound, and again, music there's no guarantees in this, but for the success that I've been seeing this year, the one thing I keep hearing over and over and over again is like, holy crap, dude, like you have a sound that no one else has. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, so clearly the sound exists. But maybe it's like the choices I make or the failures of my engineering or sequencing or like cutting the tails of reverbs or something. You know what I mean? Like little things like that. And maybe it's the cherry picking of the things that inspire me that I finally found the right configuration that just makes me stand out. And that in an essence is what this whole like training sequence is for. It's to like know what is the sound and the order of sounds that make me feel connected to it. Like I can be technically proficient writing any kind of music, I'm sure, right? I've been doing this long enough that I think any style could be of ease, but can I connect emotionally to it? So I think that's really what this is, like a discovery project, man.
Dude, for sure, man. No, I resonate with all that on a broader level. For me, what comes up for me talking about the jack of all trades, I've done so many different things in my adult life, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I like doing stand up. I started doing stand up when I was like 18 years old, and I think like, yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like sometimes I think like, man, if I just would have like grinded out at that, like maybe I, would have a different sort of a path. But I also, and discovering late in life that I had ADHD, it's like, oh, this makes sense. Like why I like so many things. But like, but when I got into acting, that's when I was like, whoa, like I really want to be good at this. And when I first started, like I went to the studio, Ivana Chubbuck, and before you get, like she teaches the master class, and before you get into her class, like you have to be in like the other class. And I had this teacher who, his name was Daryl Carroll, and he's hilarious. He used to be like, he's like an OG Groundlings guy, but it was the kind of an acting studio where it was like, I'd do a scene and Daryl would be like, good God, that was awful, and like the other teachers, and I learned this kind of like in my journey there, some of the other teachers at that studio would move people up to Ivana's class, pretty like liberally. Daryl like never moved anybody up to her class. And I was just like, I'm going to get fucking good enough to where Daryl is going to fucking be like, I'm moving you up to Ivana's class. And I fucking worked my ass off, just like becoming a better actor. And I remember the day in class I did a scene and he was just like, it's been really cool to see your journey. Like, I think that you're really good and I'm going to move you up to Ivana's class. And when I did my first scene in her class, she was like, holy shit, where did you come from? So that's like, like training, training the kid. Like and so for me, it was like, cool. Like I need to like be in this. And that's when I kind of stopped doing stand up a little bit less. Cause I was just like so focused on being present and being like a good actor. And, that led me to like improv and just all this stuff. So I've done a lot of things, I've made like a comedy movie and this and that. But I always try to approach everything that I do as like, I want to do this the best possible way that I can. And like our comedy movie, a sketch comedy movie, like we raised a bunch of money on Kickstarter and we fucking like made it the best that we could. And what people often will say when they see it is like, wow, that was like really well done. So I guess to your point, it's like, I like being a jack of all trades because of my ADHD, but I want to be good at everything that I want to be like, I want to put the drive and focus into anything that I'm into at the time, is like how I equate that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it just made me think of something. It was another saying that a lot of people like throw around as like a taboo thing, right? It's like, oh, curiosity killed the cat. And it's like, oh, you're too curious. Like, you just need to stick with one thing. And this is something like in my generation, we were told, like, you'll never have a calculator in your pocket. And it's like, I got a calculator on my wrist now. But the rest of the saying is, okay, so curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. And so in some way, right, it's like all of the things you've done, well, all the things every person has ever done in their life is an accumulation, right? And that accumulated information, knowledge, wisdom, whatever you want to call it, depending on the degree in which you see it, that is what makes you unique in the sense of how you interact with like the dream of the planet, right? Like we all live in our own personal reality, right? So personality. And then on the other aspect is like we also interact in a social sense. So there's like this planet reality. And if we're lucky enough, right, the harmony of our personal realities blending together, and we make, as the four agreements people would like to say, is we make agreements together. Like, I like what you're saying. I like what you're doing. So we're in harmony now. Those natures. And so you think about like acting, comedy, writing, because I know you write, like not just musically, but like literary, and consuming other people's literature. Like you have concepts and expressions that go beyond just the verbal. And we can see that in the way we dress, the way we style our hair, the way we walk, the way we talk, all of those things, right, become like this display of how we have experienced the world. And I think music, or performing arts, is one of the greatest ways for us to amplify that. Almost like it's a hyperbolic expression of a singular moment in our life, but in our own interpretation, in a way that someone can relate to. So in some sense, whether we're working on, self-help, or like trying to become a better person or organization, or setting a goal of creation and trying to see the success and the social world or the financial world, whatever it be, all of these things become this like play, right? And I remember my sister, she had this pen. She used to make these pens, like, because she's all punky and like anarchy in some way. But it was like supposed to be a Shakespeare quote, and it was like, all the world's a stage and you are crap. And I always used to laugh at that, because it's like, yeah, man, like all the world is a stage. And if you can laugh at yourself and have fun and go through the drama of life while being pleasant and having the quality of peace and as a prerequisite for your day, like you could really go into this whole concept that you are an actor every day. And this is the grand play. This is the great drama,
Dude, completely, man. And, I think it's so important to like not take life so seriously. And that's just been my motto for my entire life. It's okay to take things seriously or be serious, but I think that on the broad sort of like picture of it, it's like I just see so many people who are miserable, and and I think that, like, for me, I always will think about my life and go, wow, like I'm just very I would not trade the life that I've lived for another life. Like, I feel like I'm in like Arlo prime reality, out of all the other Arlos that could have existed. Like, I wouldn't trade what my experiences have been for anything else. And even when, like finances are tight or shit hits the fan or whatever. But I think the ability to treat this life like a play, and to realize that not only are you an actor in it, you're also a writer in it, and you're writing your own story, as well. And so I think that people might oftentimes go like, I'm the victim of my story, but it's like, well, all you gotta do is pick up the pen and change it.
Dude, that is money right there. Absolutely, dude. Like if you think about it, right, like pain and suffering, they're not the same. Like they're not. Pain is real. Pain is very real. Suffering, it's up here in the head. Like you can suffer something that happened 10 years ago. You can suffer something that hasn't happened yet. Whereas like pain is good because it's a signal of the body, like letting you know things are happening, and it could be excruciating, which some people will be, oh, that's suffering. But if we were to break the words apart and kind of think about it, it's like, man, no, like people are suffering. Oh God, I don't have windshield wiper fluid in my car.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
there's interesting things about that, man. And I, you said something that really sparked a narrative, that like a theme that has been running in my head over the last 30 days, which is taking things too serious. Like I really, when I'm writing music and I'm in flow state, I'm not taking it very serious. I'm just having fun creating. And
Totally.
there's this aspect where I, got to make a living and all that kind of stuff. And I truly believe and feel I have made a commitment and dedication to do it through music in a vision of my own. That's why I do all the planning and all the organization, because at least if nothing else, I took that aspect serious, and all the rest is just in the moment, improv, as it were,
Yeah, I love that, man. And clearly it's been working for you. I mean, I feel like since I have like first met you, what, like 3 or 4 years ago? I mean, like, God,
I feel like
time
I've
is.
known you my whole life now
I
at this
know,
point.
dude.
Jesus, dude.
But I just feel like I've just seen your progression as an artist, just really unfold in in a really awesome way that is also just so genuine and unique to who you are. But I
Thanks.
think like, yeah, and I think sometimes like we need the outside perspective, because I know on the inside is just like it's hard to like quantify sort of like where am I in terms of this thing that I'm pursuing or doing. But I could say from the outside perspective, from my perspective, like I have seen you like level up every year in terms of just the art that you're actually making, and in terms of what you've accomplished, and like what you've been able to do. And I'm just like so proud for you, dude. Like it's just really cool to see your growth.
Man, I'll say a couple things on that, but you said proud for you, man. So one of my friends and one of my teachers made a distinction of the phrase, right? And it was, I'm proud of you and I'm proud for you. Right? There's a lot of people that will say I'm proud of you, but they don't realize like the context of that means like they had a helping hand in it. Whereas like I'm proud for you is like a more humbled, respectful way, more formal, saying like I had nothing to do with this. I'm so proud for you. But Arlo, you could actually say you're proud of me, because dude, there have been times when I have questioned all things and had, it's like the ninth gate, dude. Like I had no one I could talk to about that track, and you were able to walk with me through that, as if it was the fire and the flames. Like my whole career like was being held in the fates of that track. And you were like, bro, just like trust. And like, here's what I think, here's some, and then like, you've given me feedback about my music where it was getting very like monotone, monotonous. You're like, you just need to add that little bit of melodic back in it. I was like, oh man, I had gone so far down like the dark side of my techno that I forgot the light. And then as soon as I brought that in, man, like whole 180. And again, it's like, it's one of those things where people are like, oh, this is my favorite track. I was like, damn, that's literally because of this influence, that you have provided. The other aspect too is like, I have such a weird journey, man. And I think a lot of people can resonate when they look back at their career. But I think like at the beginning stage, when we're bedroom producers, which I am totally a glorified bedroom producer at this point, I suppose, is that we don't have validation. We don't have a guiding light. And it makes you almost wayward. And it can be really compelling to just be negative, be lost, and feel like it's not worth it. And at the points where you think you're ready to give up and just like hang your hat, like I've done all I can do. Like if you just push forward with some constitution and will and hope, like that's when the magic happens. Because many times I've been like, all right, time to put the hat up. And then it's like someone will be like, don't you dare do that. It's like, but I need to get like a real job. And they're like, dude, this is what you do in life. There's nothing more fulfilling You don't want to be on your deathbed regretting the thing that you should have done versus sitting on your bed going, I probably shouldn't have said that thing to so-and-so because I kind of regret that.
Yeah.
But then 3 months later, this happened and we were closer or whatever the factor be. So I don't know, man. It's such a strange thing, but I would definitely say that friends are so important, man. Like without you, without the people that are supporting me, I don't even know if I would be where I am today in terms of like my mental health and my journey. Like it is a necessity to have people supporting you that genuinely want to and generally are there when you need them. And so, it's like, there's like this tipping point, man, where you have to rally your friends a bunch before they take you serious. And then at some point, like your initial group of supporters, those were like the sparks that helps you get where you're going. And then there's this whole new group of supporters. And I think this is true for anything like Kickstarters and all that. There's this whole new group of supporters that just genuinely want to support you as a human or your project, whatever it be. And you don't even have to rally them. Like they're just there. They know when they see, in my case, they see a show and they're like, yo, we got to rally for ShadowStar because he should be playing this show. There's no one else that is better for this. Not proficiency better, like quality best for a moment, because I'm sure just like in films, man, there's tons of amazing, great actors. They're like, oh yeah, on paper and like accolades, this is the guy or gal. And sure enough, it's like, oh, that actor was like, no, that movie's going to flop. And then they get this no name, rootin' tootin', like, this is my first gig, and it just kills. It just blows up out of nowhere, whether it's like a cult classic or if it literally just kills the box office. And I wonder if this is like the path almost of destiny. Like if you're destined for some sort of greatness, right? And I believe everyone is. Whether you feel up to the task or not, you're not obligated to, then I think you can see it through and achieve something beyond your initial vision. And in some senses, come back to planning. I know I'm jumping around, but if you kind of see my holistic view of chaotic ADHD, I'm sure I have. Never diagnosed, so we'll find out one day. But think about it like this, though, man. Where you were 1 year ago, right? If you could go, I don't know if you journal, but if you could go back to December 18th, 2023, and you read your journal entry, where you want to be, your goals, your aspirations, all of that, right? And then you see where you are today, would you find that you have accomplished less, the same, or more than what you had initially journaled a year ago?
Dude, I think in all honesty, and I don't journal, and I really should. It's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, this is like a discipline that I need to, like, it would just be really good and beneficial. But I do remember last year, kind of just reflecting on the year and then making some goals for myself for the year. And, one of them was like releasing an EP. And that really motivated me to like get that thing done because I was just like, I want this to be done. So that was like a big goal of mine. But then I have found in other ways, I have achieved more than I even wanted to achieve. And it's not just in music, but just in life and in what I'm doing right now with like this theater that I work at. And, it's like, it's interesting. But I would say that I've probably accomplished more than what I thought that I would have a year ago, which is like, what a trip,
Yeah, I mean, retrospective, right? And I think that's the thing, right? So here's my conundrum. I always am trying to be my best self. Like I'm always looking at how I can improve and become better and do better, right? But I took a hard look in the mirror and I was like, what if this is my best self? And that is a scary realization if you're not somehow satisfied. And so then you kind of have to ask yourself in some way, like, okay, if this is my best self right now and I can't even recognize it, then how can I get better? And I think like sometimes blinders are good, but I also think realization is very, very good when it comes to measurable metrics of your life. And so in some way, I realized, here's a great example, wealthy people, or I should say people that are financially blessed, that have just like, they can do anything they want at any point in time of any second of every day, right? They can do this because of the tool or power of money. That is the concept that I like to use as my best self. If I can be the best person that I can be, that means I can do anything I want at any moment in time of every second of every day. Now, whether that has to do with money or writing the best song of my life or just being pleasant in every moment and being aware, right? Living, truly being alive, then that's what I'm going to like try and do. And normally my goals, whenever I start trying to do goal setting or like dabbling in understanding of manifestation and like trying to be in that frequency of things, it was always like, okay, 1 year from now, I will be there. But a year from now, I'm going to be a totally different person with completely different wants and goals and desires and things that I want to achieve than I am today. So I need to do that today. Like the thing that I want, then it has to be done today. That's all you have is this like everlasting eternal now. Whether you want to run out of the seconds of 2 minutes ago or run out of the seconds 2 minutes from now, like here we are.
Yeah.
And so that is my realization. Fundamental, like achievable things that I can do today. And a lot of the times we do things that I truly believe we did not set out to do, as in overachieving in the areas that man, it's like I have this list of things I want to do every day because I think it will help me be more organized and more proficient in life. And today I got home, I was tired, I just had physical therapy, I worked a long day, lots of weird positions for electrical work, and I got home and there's my dog, kennel trained, waiting for me. And I'm like, man, I need a minute, I cannot take you on a walk. And my dog has been waiting all day.
Yeah.
Since this morning, patiently, needs to go out, needs to be fed, needs to be walked. And man, there was a moment where I was like, not today, I'll get to you in an hour. And I was like, wait a minute. That hour is now. Whether it's an hour from now or an hour before, right now is where I'm at. So I fucking grabbed my dog, totally doing its circles, getting all rambunctious, doing the zoomies, and then like we go on a walk and I'm just like watching the sun set in this like pastel fall winter colors. And I'm just like, I'm there, man. I am just there in the moment. Bring my dog back. She's just with me the whole way. Like I'm training her. She's doing really good. It's like, man, I almost missed that. I almost missed that moment because
yeah, dude.
It was easier to say no and sit down, lay down, play a video game, something of the nature. Instead, I got to do that. I hydrated, got my blood flowing in a nice stride. My dog and I spent time together. I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is the best you is when you say yes to life in that sense.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, it's like Yes Man with Jim Carrey. I mean, there is something to that. Like
Red Bull.
like it's a silly movie, but it's like there is something to that of like the amount of times that we deny something because we're lazy or we are scared, we don't think that we can achieve or what have you. The amount of times that we deny opportunities. And you mentioned manifestation earlier, and something that's interesting about manifestation that I have discovered in my sort of time doing it, like I do like sigils. And so I will like do a sigil for an intent, And that's like my manifestation exercise. That's a way for me to challenge my will into, and it's something that's like easy enough to do. And what's interesting is like things that come around that it's like, whoa, this was like something that I put out into the universe like a long time ago and honestly forgot about, And so one, it's like, you don't know when certain things are coming that you set into motion for yourself,
Yeah.
because like if we want to talk like super woo or or whatever, it's like if we're experiencing reality in like a linear existence, but if you step outside of the dimension of time and just everything that ever has happened or ever will happen just is, you don't know the thing that you asked for like could be coming tomorrow. It could be coming 7 years from now. And so one is like, am I in the state to receive the thing that I wanted? Am I a different person than I was when I had like tried to manifest this thing? For me, it's like right now, I had a moment this year with this theater that I work at where I was like, oh, this is cool and all, but I really want to be like just doing music or whatever. And I was like, wait a second, what are you talking about? I literally remember back in like 2019, like doing a manifestation exercise of like, I was doing improv all the time. I was like managing this theater, but not really getting paid for it, like this other theater. And I was like, I just love this so much. I would be so happy if I just like got an adult salary to do this, right? And now it's like, I have that, which is like such a fucking trip. And I had to go like, wait a second, I asked for this, and then I had to then go like, okay, I'm going to like put my best foot forward with this and really love it. Because this is an opportunity that is being presented to me and I have to like grab onto it. Which is, I think, is the other part of manifestation, is like recognizing the opportunity and then still having the act of like, I'm going to grab onto this opportunity and ride it out. And I think also things don't show up the way that we maybe think that they're going to show up, like when we like manifest. And so it's like, it's like being open to the possibilities and being open and it's that saying yes to certain things is like that's like the key part of the manifestation process, I think, is like recognizing like, oh, this is a thing. And I think people get hung up on like, okay, I want to be a millionaire, or I want to be a movie star, or I want to be this or that. And maybe the thing that they wanted, it's like a different path to get there. And it might be a different path altogether, right? But it's like recognizing that.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, dude, I feel like you hit the nail on the head and said it very well, because my conclusion of hearing what you're saying also is like, okay, so you use a sigil for a particular desire, want, quality, something of the nature, right? And it's formless. It is formless. And then maybe a year later, that's when it manifests, right? Like becomes into material. And you have to be able to recognize the form in which it comes in.
Totally, dude.
I think that sensitivity to awareness is like, it's non-amendable. It's like, it's invaluable.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I think a lot of people think like, oh, I do my visualization of me, on set on a big movie across from Jennifer Aniston or something. But it's like that's not enough. That's not like that's like one aspect of it, but you have to also put in like, you have to take the action and then know when to grab onto the thing. And I think people who are really good at people who are really good at success, and I'm going to say like, I'm phrasing it that way because like there are people who are really good at success, and whatever that success is, if that success is like, I know I'm going to be a famous comedian, or I know I'm going to be a finance guy, or what have you. There is like something that I have observed amongst various people, various like different groups that I've been a part of or scenes. Like, there's comics that I started doing comedy with who became very successful, and they always had that mindset of like, I am going to be really successful at this. They didn't just wish for it. They manifested it by also just believing it and then acting as if. And I think that's like a big part too. It's like wear the clothes of the person that you want to be and start being that person. I watched this like really crazy thing on Gaia one time. It was called like Quantum Jumps. I know it's so stupid, but there's some like interesting stuff.
I like Gaia. I think shit. You could watch every news station tonight and be full of fear porn, and on the other side, like, you could be watching Gaia and learning about noetic science and
completely, dude, and
things that are taboo to some, and to others, it's great positive content.
This thing that
Discovery
I watched
Channel.
It was called like Quantum Jumps, and basically the point of it was like being able to become the person that you want to be, because that person exists in an infinite, possibilities of just what could be. And it's like, if you want to be the version of you, that is a CEO, you need to start dressing like a CEO and start talking like a CEO, and eventually you will be a CEO. You know what I mean? Like this, like, it's like that kind of an idea.
More like embodying something versus like fake it till you make it. Because like I've seen the fake it till you make it method in my own life, and I've also seen like, no, this is who I am. This is what I do. And when you own that, it is like you tap into the alternate timeline that is waiting for you to be like, that's the one that I want to be tapping into.
Yeah, completely. There's this guy, Jack Canfield, who wrote a book called The Success Principles, and one of my friends in improv one day, like before a class, like he like randomly pulled this book out of his backpack, and he was just like, hey, everybody, like he like made an announcement. He was like, everybody, he's like, I just want to say this book has been instrumental in my life. This book is the reason why I have been booking all these commercials and why I got booked to do this TV show and whatever. He's like, I was at the lowest point of my life, and I found this book like on the ground. And like most of the people in class were like, whatever, dude. And I was just like, well, hang on a second. Like, this is if you're attesting that this book like changed your life and it has all this like crazy meaning for you, like that's super fucking cool. I want to read this book. So I like bought the book and read it, and it's just like it's really great. It's called The Success Principles, and it's like a self-help type book, of like making goals for yourself and all this other stuff. But there's a part in the book where Jack Canfield talks about how he would host these parties where you come to the party as if it's like 5 years in the future, and you pretend to be the version of yourself 5 years in the future for like and everybody, and you don't talk like at the party. You're not like, oh, I'm gonna be this. It's like at the party, you're like, I just won an Academy Award last week, and someone else is like, oh, that's great. My nonprofit, we were able to build all these houses in this third world country, or like whatever people's various goals are. But you like are pretending like you've already achieve them, and it's like a whole like weird thought exercise, and it's funny, man. The more I know, we're kind of going down this rabbit hole, but it's like the more you look at like the law of attraction, self-help type stuff, Tony Robbins or whatever, and then you look at like Crowley, you look at like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and you look at
as it is recycled and refurbished in so many ways, man.
Completely.
If you think about it, that's exactly what we were talking about even previous, right? Like your best self, projecting, goal setting, all this comes back down to this moment where you're like, as ephemeral as life may be on the material realist point of view, there's this other like floating point where anything and everything is already possible. And, they always say, if you believe it, you can achieve it. And I think that is part of the concept, right? Like, what did I say earlier is an actor for a day, like just completely being the person or not the person you want to be, just to be in those shoes, being the most comfortable generation to ever live on planet Earth, as far as we know, unless you watch Gaia. And then, you look at the things that we can do, the way we can travel, and it is like there is such the most real potential and potency of that potential for us to be of that mind. I mean, okay, so I think his name is Brian Tracy, very much like an old school Tony Robbins, similar to Carnegie and Nightingale, right? Where he's like, as a man thinketh, so he will be. And it's like, whatever you think about most of the time, that's going to be a result. So, again, if you're suffering your freedom, well, you're not bound, you're not in bondage. How can you escape freedom? So if you're suffering your freedom, it's like, well, maybe there's something I need to change in my thought process and my actions and my habits to be that best version and succeed, right? I mean, I find that this is most interesting because the same thing with like music or anything else. It's like, I want to achieve X, right? So X, Y, Z is the process, but like you never put yourself into the state of mind of Y or Z. So how could you ever get past X? I think Rinzin from Mousetrap and like Desert Hearts and all that, right? Like he just, in one of his classes that he did, he was like, being a professional was a state of mind, and I had to decide when I'm going to be a professional. What is a professional? How do you define it? And then do it.
That's awesome.
Like, do it. And Rinzin is like blowing up, man. And I still don't think he has peaked. I think he's in his prime, but I don't think he's peaked. I don't think he's like gotten to the height where he's like, oh my gosh, I've done it. Like, I think each step of the way, he's like, this is the big break. And then something amazing happens. Next one comes up. This is my big break, And he treats, philosophically, as he has said, he treats every moment as if it is the best moment. And I can appreciate that.
Dude, me too, man. And that makes me think about Bryan Cranston, because Bryan Cranston is a person who, he is a working actor, and he works, like he takes every opportunity that he's given to do his craft. And I think it's like so cool that that's just his mindset, and his philosophy is just like, I'm going to, whatever it is, whatever I'm offered, it's like he went from Breaking Bad to doing like, he was like, he was in Godzilla, and he was Zordon and Power Rangers,
Yeah.
and there's probably like a lot of people who, it's like coming off a show like Breaking Bad, it's like, am I going to be Zordon? But he's just the person that's like, yeah, like they offered me this role, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it to the best of my fucking ability. I think he was the best part of the Power Rangers movie. He was like such like a mean Zordon too. Like, you piece of shit teenagers. But he's just constantly...
Look at how he got started. Like, it took him, and if you were to look at an ideal situation for an actor, most people would look at his like trajectory as like, oh my God, that took so long. I don't know if I could, cut it. But, Malcolm in the Middle, all these things that like literally happened in what we would call an old age. And to him, he's like, no, I'm young. Like, this is it.
Yeah, completely. And like before Malcolm in the Middle, he had he was on like Seinfeld, like
The
he was
doctor.
like, yeah. Yeah, he's in like like a handful of Seinfeld episodes. And then also, dude, he does theater. My parents saw him at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival doing theater. And this was like while Breaking Bad was like running. Because theater is like one of those things where I feel like for an actor, it's like theater is the thing that just like fills your soul, because it's like you're living this life of this character for like the duration of the play. And then it's also one of those things where it's like you make a lot of money doing movies, commercials, television, but like, you don't make as much like doing theater unless you're doing it at like this extremely high level. And there's only like, relative to the number of actors doing theater everywhere, there's like a small percentage that are making like a lot of really good money doing it. But it's like, but people do theater because they love it. And I feel like, and so it's just like, he's a person that just loves his craft and will probably not like hang it up. I can't imagine. I mean, they're rebooting like Malcolm in the Middle. Like I just
saw that today.
Yeah,
today.
dude.
I was like, get out.
I'm stoked, man. It's funny because I've been seeing all these like articles about how like the actor that played Dewey, like Bryan Cranston would like let him like come over for like family holidays, or like if he needed like to be like supervised or like he just, Bryan Cranston like welcomed him into like his family unit, which I thought was so cool. And then I read another thing that was like, he has called Frankie Muniz like every week, like since the show ended. Like he calls him once a week to like catch up. He's gone to like his races and stuff. And then I see the thing that they're like bringing back Malcolm in the Middle, and just made me feel good. It just made me feel like, oh, this is great,
Faith in humanity restored.
yeah, completely, man. So yeah, I think it's just it's so it's evident, the people who are loving what they do and seize the moment and look at every opportunity as an opportunity, and who will continue to do the thing that they do, even if it brings them no success or fame. I mean, I think about like Van Gogh, like in his lifetime, he never achieved success like during his life, and like he's, looked at as like one of the most revered artists of all time. So yeah, I think like on some level we do what we do because we love it. We make music because we love it. And it's like, and if you don't love it, like if you're only trying to do it because you want to achieve like this crazy level of success, go be a fucking stockbroker, go sell like computer chips or something. Like do something where it's like a little bit more, it's like an easier path to like climb the ladder to success.
Like a financial goal, right? It's like, well, there are many ways to make money. Just sacrifice what is not making you money for things that make you money. And I don't know, man. Like I absolutely can see why. It's like I think there's this book. It's like put your butt where you want to be, right? And the concept is just like, dude, do the thing you want to do and do it, like play full out. Like don't show up to work, play. Like we forgot how to play as we get older, especially because it's like, oh, you're playing too much, or you're roughhousing. Like you remember the time, like I don't know if you noticed this, but late 90s, early 2000s, it was like, oh, you're playing video games, like you're wasting your life, blah, 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 blah. Well, like some people literally have an entire life because of video games, friends, communities. The aspect is like, imagine going to play a 15 to 45 minute tournament where you walk away $250,000. Like we were always told, like young in school, like video games rot your brain, blah, 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 blah. It turns out the military is like actively seeking people that play real-time strategy games. Like it only took a couple sci-fi novels for them to realize like, oh, we may have a more efficient way of perceiving resource control, or like region, geopolitical understandings, because I've played the game so many times that like I have ideas that otherwise would not have been thought of because of the constraints of reality. So yeah, I mean, I think that's really what all this is, man. When it comes down to your passion is play full out, have fun. Don't forget that it's a play. We're on a stage. Yeah, life is a game. Just choose the type of game you want to play.
Yeah, dude,
You know?
completely. And cool things will happen. And, you know, to bring this back around, like, you know, I think that you've had like this past year for you especially has been just like super fucking cool. Just like the shows that you've done, the people that you've had opportunities to play with, and then just the sheer amount of shows that you're doing and being like, you know, like an integral part of the scene in Austin. Like, dude, that is like so fucking cool, man. You know?
Thank you.
Yeah, dude. Like what you know, what for you now that we're, you know, December 18th as we're recording this, like looking back on some of like your big highlights of the year for ShadowStar, you know, like how are you processing all that? Like how are you feeling about your year and where you're at?
Well, I mean, if you asked me when I played Seismic Light, which is like the spring festival that really kicked everything off, you know, the idea was that I was to play the Deadmau5 show that was coming to Concourse, and we never got confirmation for weeks. And then Andrew Parsons, he was like, "Hey, do you want to come play Seismic?" Which is like his baby. That's like his prize festival. Is the largest and most efficient and most fun house and techno boutique festival in this area. I mean,
So cool.
it puts to shame some festivals that go by, because when I say shame, I mean like, shouldn't we all be having this experience at every festival, like where even the critics can't critique it negatively? So I played that and people were like, "What's next?" You know, I was doing some interviews and stuff at that time, started getting some PR going. And I was like, I don't know what is next. This could be the last show. Like, we'll see once I play if the people will embrace me. Because like, unlike anybody else that I've talked to that is into this industry and this scene, like they are all about like domination through conquest. And if I'm going to go on a conquest, Arlo, if I'm being 100% honest, and this could be my downfall because I'm learning how to advocate for myself and be better at capitalism, is that I don't want to go through domination. I don't.
Same, dude.
I want 100%, 150%, if that's even possible, to be by embracement. Like, I will play where the people want me to play. I will play if people want me to play. And if they don't, then I will go play with myself. But the concept truly being is that, like, there are so many talented people, so many people worthy and deserving and grind maybe even harder than I have ever grinded. But I don't want to grind myself to where there's nothing left. I don't want to be the star, as it were, that shines so bright I burn out before my time. I would much rather have my friends, my family, and my fans support me to the extent that the dreams happen because of embracement. And I think I'm just in a very interesting position that is a very real possibility. And it's the only way that is authentically measured and vibrating in my heart, mind, and soul, where it's like my head has a thought, my heart is charging that thought, and then my hand literally makes the application come into reality. So if I was to look at where I was when I did Seismic, I was like, I don't know. Then we got confirmation to play the show for Deadmau5, and my whole city and you and all my friends were like, "Yo, he needs to play this show." And sure enough, the promoter was like, "Yeah, let's get this dude on direct support. Like, let's get this to happen, you know?" And he took a huge gamble on me, seeing as like, this would be, if I had to look at everything, right? This is the first ShadowStar year. Yeah, I was developing it, you know, a couple years before, but this was the first year to like put ShadowStar on the map. And so I played, and people were just like, dude, what? Where has this been? It's like, it's always been here. But I'm not here to dominate. I'm here to be embraced and embrace everyone around me as best I can. So then you fast forward to like the week after, I'm playing with Hilo, just me and Hilo. It's like, what?
Dude,
Not
that is
because
insane.
of the status of Hilo and the status of me, because of who Hilo is in my life as a musician and artist that is, you know, again, like Deadmau5, the soundtrack to my formative years. It was like, oh my gosh, okay, now I get to rep Austin and deliver yet again. And go look at my interviews, man, where people are asking me like, what is the answer to this moment for you? And it was like, the people, they called for me. I won because somebody said my name. Now what I owe in a sense of obligation of like honor, ethics, morality is I have to deliver. I have to bring everything they know me to be and stuff they have no idea. Play an all original set, or, you know, minus 4 or 5 songs, original set with all my own music, and see people react to and go, dude, what is this sound? And it was like, oh, it's this. And they're like, no, it's not that. And so I have to sit there and go, okay, there's something unique here. So when I look back and I see like, what do I perceive of it? I think that belief and manifestation came together in this dream of my personal reality meeting the dream of the planet, and people saying, you know what, man, like it takes 60 seconds at most to support someone on social media, and seeing as that is like a very viable medium right now for people to leverage support for one another, whether it's GoFundMe's or, you know, posting my name in a comment, which was how people started to go, who's the show? Who is this guy that everyone is tagging? Like, let's go check him out. Oh, okay, that's what's up. And being, you know, proficient at it. Like, it's not like I'm just hitting a pre-recorded set. Like, you go listen to my live recording, like you'll hear slapback, you'll hear me slipping at one particular point, but like it's how you recover, it's how you bring out the songs. And in a way, this wholesome, holistic, retrospective view of things is that it is possible. That's what I have now. And I think if I was to look back and sit here and go, okay, what is it? What is this year for me? And it was like validation, proof and validation. I don't know if the quality of how this year unfolded will be the same for next year, or if it will change into a different form and I'll have to recognize formless going into form. It's, in a way, dude, I'm living my own dream movie, and everyone is absolutely important as a role in this movie of my life. And all I can hope, man, is that I deliver like any other actor on any other stage, except this isn't an act. It is action in motion. And it has become such a philosophical, visceral, and sentimental realization. I don't know if I would want it any other way. I don't know if I would change it.
Hell yeah, dude.
I think I'm happy, man.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome, man. That's great, dude. Like,
struggles and all.
Yeah. It's super cool, man. And, you know, yeah, like it's what a cool, like, you know, what a cool chain of events. Also the fact that it's like the preparation meets opportunity, you know, of you being diligent in your preparation for the moment, and then being able to seize the moment, and it's so fucking cool to see, dude, from where I sit here in California. Like it's just been really awesome to see, and you know, and I'm excited. I'm excited for when you come out and play Los Angeles, dude. Because
One
I
of
feel
these
like that's
days,
on
man,
the
God
horizon
willing.
for you, man. um,
Yeah.
would you say now that you've been playing out a lot more, do you think about your music in a different way within the context of just of performing it?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Because like when I was writing music prior to performing live on these like massive stages, it was very theoretical. The music was theoretical. And when I played, I started realizing what I want my music to do, how I want to conduct a person's experience. And so now I have a direction, and it's like, oh, now I am cooking. And regarding to performance, right? Like I really beat myself up because I want to do, in a way, my mom and dad are my heroes. They performed like 4 sets a night, 5, 6 nights a week at their own club on 6th Street in Austin, Corner Club too. And when I watch their videos, the old tape VHS, it's distorting now and stuff, I see them as like real rock stars, not the ones that I didn't know what a rock star was. I didn't know what the depth of like behind the curtain was, showbiz. I just saw my parents telling their truth through song and watching the crowd lose their minds and finding themselves in the midst of losing their minds. And so I was like, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to do. And so I beat myself up. And when I'm in a hiatus where I'm not playing shows, that is the worst time for me, like just mentally and everything, because the time away, even if I'm practicing, which now I'm like consistently practicing because it's like, you never know,
Yeah.
like I'm in that weird limbo stage where I'm like, is success at my door or do I still need to put in the chops? And I think it's both. So when I went to go play Seismic Light, it was like, oh, dude, if I mess this up, I am going to never play again. Meaning like no one will ever book me again. I'll just be so bad. And I realized that is such a crock, dude, because I'm not saying I'm the best DJ, but I will say that I know how to make something flow in a way. It's like any sort of flow art. Like there's people that are super choppy and they do their thing. And then there's people that flow and you're like, oh my, this is so clean. And that's the path I chose, even if I try to put some chops in there, right? And I was so scared, dude. I will not lie. I was so scared of what could happen. The thought of failing was enough to cripple and paralyze me. And yet I would persevere, push through. I remember walking up to the venue ready to play for Deadmau5. And it's a sold out show. I know, like, if you fuck this up, Andrew comes up to me and he like puts his hands on my shoulder and goes, don't fuck up. And he clarifies, like I always say, man, like, just it's my way of saying like break a leg, like you can do this.
Totally.
And I appreciate him for that because it made me laugh. And I said, I appreciate you, man. Like, 'cause it pulled me out of my egocentricity enough to where when I finally walked in the venue, nobody's in there except the staff. I just stood in the middle of the concourse. And then I was walked to the stage. I asked, hey, can I go stand up there real quick? Never been up on the inside stage. One of the coolest girls that works there, she's like, yeah, go check it out. I go stand there and I look at everything. I can feel it right now, man. It's where I'm supposed to be. I was good. All that, oh God, I'm suffering. Remember the suffering part? I was suffering my own thoughts, my own condition. As soon as I walked up, I was like, this is it. And it was. It's a testament. So it's crazy to think.
Dude, for sure, man. And those feelings, of connecting to, that feeling of like, this is my purpose or this is what, like if you were to like if you were to do like the Abramelin operation to like meet your holy guardian angel, you know, and then your holy guardian angel is like, this is this is what you're supposed to be doing. It's like to have those moments where you sort of transcend yourself and you're like, oh yeah, this is like exactly where I'm like meant to be, you know?
I think that is the key, man, is to be able to recognize the form when formless takes that form, right? Because I think I was ready, dude. Like I had a conversation with my dad and I was just like, I think I'm ready to stop doing music. Like, I think I just want to focus on surviving right now and like get to a point where I am thriving in life as just a being. My dad was like, it's okay to take a break. And I was like, no, like he's like, don't be dramatic. He's like, you're about to do things that you don't even know. And here's the thing, man. And I wish I could have this conversation, you know, with Andrew or the people that like helped me get to this point. But like my dad had open heart surgery, had a congenital birth defect and was on his deathbed. And he's like, you need to go play dead mouse. And I'm like, Dad, I'm like literally in the ICU with you and then going to work. Like this is where I'm at like every day for a month. And he was like, go. He would sit up. His whole like death would disappear and he would be in a different reality. And he'd just be like, go play, son. I wish I could be there. And then my mom went. She was up on the rail. Like Mitzi brought her up to the rail. My mom, almost 70 years old, like, what are you doing? And my mom's like, I like the rail. The rail is cool. Like I can see you from there. And, you know, my mom was having like what the doctors call chronic minor strokes. So like she got a stroke any minute. We don't even know. And I basically saw my parents like on their deathbeds. My mom was like losing all her weight. She couldn't walk, all of that. And all of a sudden she started getting better. Like right as my dad was going into open heart surgery, she starts getting better. And she's like, I want to go to the show. And I was like, well, I'm going to get you in. Don't worry. Like I will pay for your ticket. And my dad goes, Dill, we want to see you in your prime on stage doing what you've done since you were 14. Like, this is all you've done. I want to see it. I want to see that moment before we're gone. And when he said that, I was like, oh my God. And he's like, I don't know how much time I have or your mother has. We need to see this. This is it. Go do it. And sure enough, man, like if I could just tell Andrew that and be like, hey man, like, do you realize like dreams came true because you gave me a chance. Imagine what happens if they give me another chance or another.
Yeah.
Whose lives do you affect? Whose lives do you change? And dude, when I was playing the deadmau5 show, there was this dude named Marco. He's up in the front on the rail, right in the middle. And he's just there, man. He's sober. He's clear-headed, but he is intoxicated. He's just feeling it. As I'd be pointing to him, I'd be like almost like telecommunicating with him. And when the show was over, I got off the stage, I go to the security to go meet the coolest fucking security dude, JP, who's also a fantastic DJ artist. And I was like, hey, can I like run up to him real quick? He's like, who? I was like, the guy in the middle. He's like, yeah, man, just go do you. So I run past the rail, I go straight to the center and I go up to him and he's just in the music. And then he looks up and sees me and I'm like, dude, you are why I do this. I gave him a hug. And at the end of the show, he ends up running into me while we're doing like a mousetrap family photo. And he's like, hey man, like, I don't want to bother you, but never in a million years would I ever think that the person performing would come down and talk to me. He's like, look, man, I would love to interview you if you ever have any time. I was like, yeah, however I can help you. And he's like, okay, cool. So I find out he's in Dallas. He does the college radio station there. He's the only one doing EDM. And we have this like kick-ass interview and it's somewhere out on the internet now where me and him bonded. And even his friend Rajiv, who's like this total awesome badass, like hopped in on the interview and we all became friends because that one moment lives were changed. And I think it's their senior year. So like he got to bring in what could very well be the interview that people like. I go look at my favorite artists' first interviews, and be like, who were they then, right? Like, how did they act? How did they respond? That they have captured that moment. And
so cool.
Right. And so this is what it's about. It's not like, oh my gosh, man. I could rant for a second if you're cool with it.
Yeah, dude.
Okay, I would go to an anime convention. I see the raves there. The raves,
Yeah.
And the artist, like the coolest artist I have met this year was Ghost Data, or Ghost Data, however you want to say it. And we had this conversation at his panel. And it was this thing like, man, the people that are here to have fun. We can be goofy, we can be silly, and we are just going to dance. I start thinking about the people that go to, like, that are in the EDM scene, like club culture, right? It's like there is this group of people that somehow influenced me, where it is more about how you look and how people interpret you versus how you really are. Who cares how you look? Are you having fun? Are you truly enjoying your life? And that just blew my mind, because I want to bring that to my performances, where people are truly just able to be themselves and not feel like they can't dance or they have to look perfect every second of the night. And it's like, no, dude, just like be you as best as you can be.
Yeah, man.
It's bizarre.
It's so interesting. Like, I was doing this a lot at Apocalypse Fest, which I just went to recently. Turning around and fucking dancing and just connecting with the fucking people who are right there. They're just right fucking there. And like, on Saturday, we stayed at one stage like the entire time. Like, we stayed at like the same stage because like it was just the energy at the stage and the type of music. It was all like deep, dark, and dangerous, and there was like, and also like the Whittler, and it was just like, man. it was super fucking cool, and like Cursa and Saruta, but it was just like the way that whoever programmed like that stage, I'm like, man, you really knew what you were doing, because it just, everything like feeded into itself, and the vibes were good. The vibes were like so fucking good at that stage, and it was just be like, I'm just gonna fucking turn around and look at people and interact with people and like, make people smile or laugh or whatever. And I see people talk about this on the internet a lot too, on like the rave subreddit, of how like somewhere along the way, it's like it turned into like everyone's like watching the DJ. And that's cool and all, especially, the show, the lights, the visuals, like what have you. But at its most basic form, we dance so we're all connecting. We're connecting to the groove. We're connecting to each other, and our experience is going to be dictated not just by the person that's playing, but by what are the vibes in this crowd right now. And if the vibes are like shitty, you're not going to feel as good, and it could be the same exact set that a person plays the next day when the fucking vibes are there, and it's going to feel like super fucking magical. So I'm right there with you, man. It's like having a good time and not worrying about like, do I look stupid? I don't know how to dance. I'm not a good dancer. Should I just, it's like,
I mean, Funkadelic said it best, man. One nation under a group. Like that's what it's about, man. Okay, so check this out. So I get off stage from Deadmau5, right? And I just like disappear into the crowd, man. And I just become a general admission now. I'm just watching Andrew Parson kick ass before Deadmau5. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, oh, fuck, man. How cool. When I got off the stage from playing high-low, I couldn't get 5 feet without being stopped, high-fived, hugged, conversating.
Whoa.
I was walking out of the bathroom, dude. Well, when I walked in the bathroom, like just getting into the bathroom was people, oh, dude, were you just on stage? And that was cool. When I was walking out of the bathroom, there's a girl, she's like, dude, you just killed it. Like, I don't think you know what you just did. Like, I think you just made your mark. And I was like, oh shit. So this dude's waiting behind her. I think he's like trying to get to the bathroom. And he's like, hey man, I don't mean to stop you in the bathroom, but I just need to tell you what you did for me. I was like, yeah, what? She's like, you just took me on a spiritual journey. I'm sitting there going like, okay, I could look at this from my ego, or I can just listen, take it all in. And I took it all in, and he was like, no, like the way you wove your song, it was a 2-hour set. So I actually had some like wiggle room to take someone on a journey. He's like, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you came from. He's like, but what you just did helped me, healed me in my life. And
Whoa.
I'm like, that's why I do this, is because that's what happened to me. Except I never got to thank those artists. And even if I could, I don't know if they're emotionally available or even want to hear that stuff. But for me, I was there for him. And I was like, you just healed me. You actually were there with me. You heard every minute of every hour for 30x years to have this moment. And we just shared it, which is so crazy, dude, because at that high-low show, like the groove was there. People were getting down. I opened, played 2 hours, and there was just high-low for 3 hours. Within that first hour, people were coming in, they were kind of grooving, they were getting down, but I started getting like, bring out the ShadowStar now. Like I know how to open. I'll play my opener stuff. But then when I went into ShadowStar as the artist, not the DJ, the artist, that's when things started getting in. And I just see this mob of bros cut through the sea of 3,000 people up to the front. And there was this one dude just like, the whole time, like at the moment where people should be like, oh, he was like, yeah, you know, and all those bros were just like on the rail, like it was a dubstep show or something. It's just like, whoa, man. So when you think about the potential of what you can do, if someone just gives you your chance, not just, we're just going to give you things, because you had done the systematic things that get you to the potential opportunity with your preparation, to be given the key pass, right, as it were, right? Because like we can all just say, fuck it, we're going to do whatever we want. But there's this aspect where someone is a gatekeeper and they can literally open the gate for you and say, I'm going to be the one that raises you up for 2 moments so that you can be with the people and see what you can provide in terms of value and memory and experience for them, specifically in entertainment. And for the first time as ShadowStar, 2-hour set, I was no longer sitting there entertaining people. As people go to shows, they're like, okay, entertain me, right? I saw a sea of people getting down, dude. Same thing with the deadmau5 show. Like when I play, people get down into themselves, and then they come up with all that energy in the out. And I think we are all capable of providing this, but it takes an outsider that has nothing to gain in the moment of the choice to support another person.
Yeah, completely, dude. I mean, you know, and I'm even just like equating that to acting, right? Auditioning, like, you know, like I worked in casting for a long time before the pandemic. And it's funny sometimes how arbitrary of a decision it is of who's going to get cast in something, right? There's so many crazy factors. You know, when I used to teach commercial acting, I would tell people, you know, like if you get the callback, you're good. Like you're good. If they chose to have you come to the callback, you're good. Because outside of that, there's so many factors out of you can give the best fucking performance or be the funniest person or whatever. And there's just, you're at the whims of just, you know, a handful of people. And for whatever reason, it's like the ad agency person is like, I really liked this guy's hair. You know what I mean? Like just the most arbitrary fucking things, right? But those are like the gatekeepers, right? Those are the people who are making the decisions, you know, on whether to bring somebody on for like the role or not. And as an actor, being on the other side of it, it's like you go to these auditions, constantly getting rejected, you know, but then when you have an opportunity, to do something, it's like, holy shit, like this is cool. But like to your point, somebody has to give you that opportunity. And it is funny to me, man, like I think about this all the time, like, you know, all of our friends, like all the people who you know, we have known from our producer communities, like at any point in time, someone is just like one social media video away from like imagine if like a big artist were to like share your reel on their stories because they just were like happened to see it, right? And for that artist, it's like maybe they're not consciously going like, I am gonna lift this person up, right? They're just like, oh, I'm gonna share this. This
genuinely
is cool.
Like, yes, and generally posting,
completely, dude. And how that the act of just that alone can you know change the trajectory of someone's career. You know, I think like
that's what it's about. It's literally about that. Imagine if every one of your followers, let's say on Instagram, right? And this is what I think every day when I'm like, how have I contributed to have this support, or to get to have the support that I dream of having? Imagine if every one of your followers, right? Every single one of them saw what you were doing, genuinely and generally cared and supported you, and they see an opportunity for you, and they all just amass and tag you. It takes less than 60 seconds. Maybe 60 seconds they have to find the right post, or maybe they stumble around the right post. But just imagine even 10 people saying, here's this opportunity. He doesn't even have to ask me. I can do this for this person.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what we should be doing. Because the alternative that I've seen, and this could be a pessimistic view, but the alternative is we see people that are there by third perspective default. Well, I mean, they were there, it was the right time, place, like it just happened. But what about the people that aren't in the right place, but are the right person? You know, the right man, but the wrong means, versus the wrong man and the right means. That whole Chinese like philosophical breakdown. Like, all we have to do to raise each other up is go, I know what this person is trying to do. I care about this person. And I at least have a voice to be their voice, especially when you're not like an actual authority or influencer in the social media world. Every person who is an actual living body can be the voice of their best friend or the artist they want to support. And all they have to do is take that 60 seconds out of their day. And the question is, what can we do as creatives to earn that respect and support through the means in which we are trying earnestly and honestly to take on this endeavor to support ourselves through the creative arts?
That's a good question, dude. I feel like there's a level of community building that goes into you know, being an artist, you know, being an entertainer, being what have you. And you know, I think that pre-social media, it was like a very much more sort of like localized version of that sort of community building. And I think that really the key to, you know, to a lot of this stuff is fostering a community surrounding what it is that you do. And then that community, you know, then can like take the action, you know, of their own free will or their own choice, or, you know, they happen to like to what you illustrated of like going like, oh, I'm going to take 60 seconds out of my day to tag this person in this post.
Genuinely and generally do it. Not like, oh, okay,
not begrudgingly, but like out of, and I think a lot of it boils down to community building, you know, and I think that it's important to build a community around what it is that you're doing, you know, and not just like, and they're not just like fans, but it's like a community of people, you know, at least at the level that like a lot of us are at. You know, I mean, what's really crazy to me too is just like blind test out of like just pure talent. You know, people that we know, you listen to their track and you're like, oh my God, like this is fucking amazing, you know? But I think that what people are missing and what I've observed, you know, with just a lot of my friends and is that sense of community building. And it's a hard thing to do. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do. I mean, like, I definitely need to do it, you know, or I'm striving to. But I think that it's a necessity right now as an artist to have some sort of a community that you're able to.
You're fostering.
I mean, exactly.
Well, I mean, like the only thing. Okay, devil's advocate, if you will.
Yeah.
Van Gogh, right? Well, why did it take his post death? Why did it take that for people to support in the way that, you know what I mean? Like, yes, I agree. Foster community. What's better than being a part of the community? Brethren, sisters, like what, you know what I mean? There's really nothing much better than that. Community, clan, all that, and I mean clan with a C, not a K. That's you know what I mean? Like, if you think about it, man, like the community can foster the space, and by doing so, who knows how many people can make it out. I always have been told there's no fairy that's going to come down and pluck you out and save you. Well, I have seen it this year more than once. I have seen a top tier artist, you know, in the words of the 10 million underneath par, literally be pulled out of the gutter and change their lives in 60 days or less. And imagine what that would be like if instead we waited for like Hercules or like the god to come down from the heavens and pull you up and establish you above the rest. What if the rest just realize, hey, we're all in this together and there's going to be different opportunities and moments for each person, right? I remember when I got the news that I was going to have my first release with Mousetrap, and I had a good portion of people like, oh, I'm next. Like, it's going to be me next. I even had someone like straight up like, it shouldn't have been you.
Oh, gross.
Right? Yeah. Well, every moment of success, I've had a like 1 degree of separation, close person be a hater of my life and my success. And I'm just like, I get it. I do. I get it. And you don't even have to one day ask for forgiveness because I get it. Like, I understand. Like, we all want our moment, and we want that moment to last as long as possible. It's like the most beautiful hallucinogenic trip where you're like, I don't want it to end. It's perfect. But the reality in some sense is that no, you don't want what I've been through to get here. You want your own journey and you want it on your own terms. And that's what Deadmau5 told me. He was like, dude, you don't want to work for me. You don't want to work for the store. You want to own the store. Like, let me give you some real advice here, bud. Like, I know what you're seeing, but let me like get rid of the smoke and mirrors for you for a minute. And at this point, dude, with the types of fans I've developed, there's probably a very real reality where I've just annoyed the shit out of that dude. You know, like just people asking me to play his shows and, you know, like all of that. And like, I get it. Like, Joel literally could lift a pinky finger in fantasy land and I could be at the very top, and, you know, he could be like, all right, break a leg. Let's see if you're worth it. You know what I mean? But in some way, he kind of was like, look, dude, just find a group of friends that are absolutely passionate at the same level you are. Doesn't matter if it's the same like path you're on, but the passion level had like the commitment and passion has to be the same, and everything's going to work out. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, like it'll just overlap. It will just happen, and it will happen the way you want it to happen. And, you know, younger self me would see people like having their moments, and I'd be like, how, dude? And now when I see people having their moments, I'm like, holy shit, dude, it's their moment. And I'm so much happier in that state because it is genuine and general appreciation and like love and support than it is begrudgingly.
Yeah, man. I love seeing my friends succeed. You know, in all walks of life. It brings me a ton of joy. And yeah, dude, it's like it's funny how, you know, people can be so bitter, you know, about stuff. And it's, you know, I hate to see it. Like, it makes me sad to see that. It's you know, it's a prevalent thing. People do it, you know? Yeah. Like, and it bums me out, you know, but it's easy for people to be jealous. It's easy for people to feel bitter. Those are like easy things to go to, I think, for a lot of people.
It takes true awareness and like self-centership, not like self-centered, but like being centered in self to say, nah, man, like I'm going to totally be happy for this person as like a response, a proactive response to, you know, like you said, friends' successes. I am so happy we are doing this right now, because this is just how we normally chat anyways.
I know,
if things are rolling. And I've wanted to do a podcast for so long. I've wanted to do a podcast for so long with you. And the fact that you're like, dude, I'm just going to do this. I'm like, all right. And then you ask me to come do that. Oh, that make what a good feeling to share in this with you right now. I don't know who's going to see this. I don't know how many times it'll be played. That doesn't matter. This conversation right now between you and me across states, where we're just like, you know what, man, let's catch up, let's chat. Maybe someone will hear this and it will help them.
Yeah, completely, dude. And it's like, it's such a, like, I was thinking about it, I'm like, you know what, this is just a really great excuse to be able to talk to my friends or talk to people that I want to talk to, and just be able to have a conversation in a world where we're just inundated with like so many things, or we're juggling so many balls. And it's like, you know what, this is just, what a great excuse to be able to just like chat with the people that I want to like chat with. And that was like the main motivator for me being like, all right, I'm just gonna do it. Cause I love talking to people, you know, it's probably the thing that I do best. Like, oh, you know, like if I'm being real with myself, it's like, I just really enjoy talking to people. So like, yeah, the fact that you were so down to come on and do this is like fucking awesome, dude. Like, thank you. This has been a ton of fun.
I hope we do it a year from now, like December 18th, 2025. We're catching up in retrospective again, right? And, you know, it's almost, it's irresponsible, Arlo, for you and I to be together in person, because we will not stop talking.
I know. Like, annoy the hell out of like everybody else that we're hanging out with.